In the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, the limited gains made in the past decades in ensuring equality for women in social, political, and economic environment seem to have been rolled back. The lives of women and girls are changing, and they are becoming even more vulnerable. The threats ranges from increased sexual exploitation, violence or movement restrictions, to closure of reproductive health services. These closures threaten to cause a sharp rise in maternal and neonatal mortality. The new challenge added to this long list of dangers women face and has to do with the female frontline workers in the COVID-19 pandemic. Globally, women make up 70% of health workers, and yet decisions made at every level of response to the pandemic are making it tougher for female health workers to fight COVID-19 and at the same time take care of their families at home. Welcome to Total Woman on AD4 TV Radio. My name is Mute Olori. My guest today is a human rights activist who has championed many causes in the fight for equality and rights of women. She is a humanitarian, a public speaker, amongst others. Please meet my guest, Idi Kato.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I know you've been very vocal about a lot of things,
Yeah.
especially as it pertains to women. And in one of your interviews, you said the COVID-19, there's a gender angle to it.
COVID-19, yeah.
What do you mean by a gender angle?
It means that, when you see issues happen worldwide, there's the main issue and then there's several underlying issues that would happen as a result of that. So when we talk about COVID-19, many people are thinking about the health effects and people dying from, contacting the virus and then the after effects of the virus. But the results of this virus affect people in several ways. There's of course a lockdown, and with that lockdown there are women who are locked down with their abusers. Primary caretakers at home are women, so who are the most susceptible to being, catching this, especially in the line of work? It will be women. Who are the people that would most likely be taking care of persons with COVID-19? It will be women, because in the healthcare sector, women play a primary role in that. In areas where you need water and sanitary health, who are those who are tasked with going to get that water? Women. Who are those who will lack water if there is a need to ration water at this crucial time, and who need it more? Of course, again, women. But back to the primary issue of sexual and gender-based violence, it is very easy for situations like this to give rise to increased brutality. And in a society, women are at, the forefront of being victims to increased brutality, while not being at the forefront of actually dishing out that brutality. So that was the angle. You have families endangered, you have people locked up with their abusers, you have women who need places to go, women who are pregnant. If you remember at the time the first lockdown happened, and even pregnant women didn't know whether to go to the hospital.
Yeah, because they were closed, yes.
Yes, and access to antenatal care, amongst so many things. So underneath this pandemic is several other kinds of pandemics, and this is it. The fallout from this is how it affects women. And it was important that in the response to COVID-19, these things were considered on the same parallel level. Let's consider the health, then we'll come back. No. You would find out that more people would have been affected by other things resulting from secondary, results of the pandemic than the health matter itself, especially with respect to Nigeria. You would find more domestic violence cases, more people displaced, more crime, all of that, than maybe people were lost from COVID-19.
The gender-based cry and campaigns
It really went,
higher
yes, it
because of the pandemic.
Yes.
People began to realize that, look, women have been abused, but the rate at which it's done now, it's like once a man is frustrated by the fact that he can't feed his family,
he
can't go out.
That was can't go out. You had people like, we had a case in Kaduna State that 5 men on a bike, they just stopped, found a small girl somewhere and raped her. Like, these issues were so much, and it is that people needed where to exert their frustrations at the time. Many people lost jobs. These are not excuses for SGBV, for if I need to add that, but these were, you know, cause and effects. Of course, people were frustrated, loss of jobs, loss of this, and the violence always ends up where people know that they can dish it and get away with it, and it's really...
So apparently the government did not think about the safety of women even when planning of what to do in this COVID-19 response.
Well, yes, what I would say is that I would say that women were not involved as much, and this is why we point to parity in leadership. That when you say you need to have more women in the room, it's that when things like this happen, you can relate to issues that, you know, speak to you, and you'll be able to plan according to that. And so if you don't have enough women in the room, you would have people just coming from a one-track area. So I think in the response, in the presidential task
force, yes, for COVID-19.
For COVID-19, yeah. I think it was just one woman.
There was none initially, but
yes,
women had to cry out.
Yes, and so they added one. And I think that was the flaw. I think that was the
And
flaw.
I don't understand why someone like the Minister of Women Affairs and some other women that are involved in other parastatals cannot just be members of the committee.
Women made this effort in defense of the minister. She did make an effort over and over again to make sure that women were included. I don't know how that ended, but she did make that effort. And I think that also in pushing forward, despite the fact that women were not included, when the fallout happened, women were there to push in the fall. Like regardless, women still put in this work from outside of the room. And I think I found out that was hurtful, but also showed that, look, even when you lock us out, like you don't give us the structures to fight these battles, women will still do this. But
who were the organizers for the palliative? Who organized the women for the palliative, or organized families for the palliative? Who were women.
Yeah.
Who were women.
I think going forward, I do hope that lessons have been... Have they?
We've always been saying this, so we've always been hoping hoping that lessons are learned.
Because I feel like I've had this kind
we
of
had the issue of Boko Haram and displaced people and they were planning the committee. Women were not involved. But the most affected during this displays were women and children.
Yes.
You know, so hoping, I don't think we should lose hope. We should keep hoping that someday it will come. So let's look at the health workers. They are the front line. And if you check the statistics, women are the ones that are in front to take care of those who come in. Do you think there are proper safety and well-being in place, measures in place for the safety of these women who are frontline workers in this season of COVID-19?
I don't think so. I think we've seen this recurring worldwide, you know, PPEs not being enough, workers, their salaries need to go up and all of that, and all the excuses governments have been given. And this again points out, look, most of the conversations we're going to have will still point to having more women in the room, right? More people who can relate to these issues in the room. And for the sake of, I think, not just, you know, oh, because a woman has been a doctor or anything, or because we've had this this career, you would understand. Because we've had men who are doctors, Minister of Health, and tell doctors to go and learn farming, right? But I feel that we come to the table with a certain kind of empathy. Our entire lives, and this is not to stereotype, I would hate to do that and think that, oh, automatically as women, I expect us to be better naturally. No, it's that we've been socialized to always think about other people other than ourselves.
Before us,
as you're growing up, is this how you do in your husband's house? Sit the right way, do this the right way.
Or do this because
so you grow up socialized to just think about all of these angles and others and how to be motherly. It's not that I just entered into the
wife material.
Yes, but it's those things. It's that you are socialized. It's forced into your head. You're taught to live for others, to be selfless, to be selfless. And so the more of us in the room would have more of this kind of angles, like, no, PPE, they should have PPE.
And women they should be considered.
They should be considered. This person is pregnant. You need to increase their salaries. You need to give them hazard allowance. All of these things. And this is not to say that automatically every woman, because you know there is that excuse that once one bad egg enters a place, then
everyone,
but no, the statistics and the ratio does not show that generally women are a certain way. No, these are the exceptions, so you can't judge us by the exceptions. The statistics show that if you put a woman in this kind of area, this is what is going to happen. And worldwide, actually, COVID-19 response, according to female world leaders, female heads of states or presidents of countries, have actually been much better. So I don't know why we have the
cases of Finland, Germany,
yes,
and some other places where women, yes.
New Zealand is even nursing. Nursing more than she brought it to a standstill. I think it has resurfaced again, but she has it under control.
Okay, so in this case of Nigeria, what are the factors related to COVID-19 lockdowns that may be responsible for the increase in sexual abuse?
Well, I think I brushed over it a bit earlier. So there's that frustration. Man, and that is the race, the human race. Human is an animal like any other. I think we try to think that we're so sophisticated, but now we're mammals. We do not like to be kept in confined places.
Yes.
So if you take a lion the first time and keep in a den or in the cage, it's not a funny reaction to that. So the first thought to lock down, don't go out, is frustration. And you're looking at the government like, okay, so when are we going to go out? And you don't know when that is.
In fact, at first, everywhere we're like, okay, after 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yes, and then
some people didn't even believe that there's COVID.
Then you have the Nigerian home, right, where husbands would go out and come back 2 a.m., 12 a.m. That's the coping mechanism for marriages that are hanging by a string. These people are now roommates. And now this person cannot go anywhere and has to witness that. There were a lot of men who were witnessing their families for the first time.
They don't talk about the children.
The children. Like, they now realize, wait, I dropped 7 children in this house and they're all, And of course, palliatives. Nigeria is a poor country. We need to live with that reality. And so palliatives were not nearly enough. People, the majority of the Nigerian population, live on what they make daily. We don't have savings from another place or anything. So you would have a lot of people who would have to go out to work for what they would eat that day, they and their family. And these people could not provide. That frustration was leading to a lot of things. And there are people who are just plain old abusive, and their victims can run to the neighbor's house, run to so-so place. But because of the kind of human rights abuse that was happening with security forces in trying to enforce this, people could not go anywhere. So they are just right there in close proximity.
And then the fear of social distancing.
Yes,
you
one of that. So
really
people were
just, to anybody.
People were just stuck there. We had cases like, you get a call in the night, please just come and remove me from this place. This person is going to kill me, all of that. So we had all of that. The frustration, loss of jobs, lack of funds, food to eat, being locked up in a place that, like it was a whole array of this. And then you have the sexual culture too, and rape culture. Men in Nigeria, and with the way rape culture happens in Nigeria, it looks like the woman's body is something that should be,
just a material.
Yes, just a material. And so many of these people have access to sex workers. And then now that they can't reach sex workers, it's like, okay, I have to look for where I'll do this. And so it has been. And another thing is, in the absence, let's go back to rape culture, is that in the absence of a proper justice system, what you reward is what will continue. So if rape is something, if there's not an active rape culture in Nigeria, and under this lockdown, perhaps the first rape case you saw, the person was dealt with, other people would know not to. But even under this lockdown, if you go to police and they raped me, or you even bring somebody bleeding, the way police responded to it is, if you are not punishing rapists, you're rewarding them for it. So the way we had security officials responding to this kind of brutality showed people who are inclined,
shaming the victims.
Yes, and showing people
blaming the victims.
Blaming the victims, and showing people who are inclined to this kind of behavior that is okay, you can continue. And that is what we saw with the kind of response. First responders were brutalized, victims were brutalized. It was so much problem all around that people who would do this kind of things would see like, oh, there's no problem, I can do it and get away with it.
They do it, they video it,
yes,
and put it online.
And they put it out there, and then nothing. So that is,
That will bring me to a question of our the state of our mental health.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I'll take a short break.
Yeah.
And when I return, we'll be looking at that. Well, if you're joined us midway, I'm sure that my guest Indicator has been able to throw more light on the situation of things as it pertains to women in this season of COVID-19. And our focus is on the health sector and the women on the front line. I'll take a short break. When I come back, we'll look at the area of mental health. Don't go away.
I am more than words you see. There is so much more to me. Oh, I can be all I ever dream of. Oh yeah, I am a total woman. I am a total woman. Oh, I am a total woman.
Welcome back. It's still Total Woman, and my guest indicator is still in the house. And together we're looking at the issue of women in the frontline healthcare workers. I remember there was a time you mentioned about the need to have mental health support system in place, especially for the women in the frontline or women generally.
Yeah.
How do you think we can go about that?
Well, I think that already we have funding for health in this country. Poor funding, which has been cut down, need I say. And we need to recognize mental health care as proper health care, because that's an issue that Nigerians do not pay attention to. And so when it comes to psychosocial support or any kind of mental health support, you'll be looking at your pastors, none of these people are really trained for that. We need to have mental health care support for people who are on the field. Imagine as somebody in COVID-19, for example, every day you're witnessing people die in the ICU. It's a problem. You will carry, I remember in the work we do with COVID-19 response and human rights, I started breaking down mentally, because every day I would receive news, they have shot my uncle, somebody has been arrested, this person has been raped. Some people will send the news with dead, photos of dead bodies and all of those things. And the effect of that, I had to get mental health care.
I mean, just look at, before we started the program, when someone mentioned that a young girl who just went back to school died out of COVID. You saw the reaction between two of us, because we had our kids, in school. I mean, so how do you think that, what kind of structure should the government put in place?
I think that in our hospitals, we need to have psychologists we need to have people there, shrinks. We need to have people in office in every federal government office. We need to have policies that ensure that in every major office there is room for psychosocial support. That look, every staff here should have access to that, because Nigerians are stressed. And most of us actually suffer from one mental health issue from the or the other, because these things develop as a result of, you may be born with it, or as a result of your society. And Nigeria is pretty the topsy-turvy place for anyone to try to survive daily. And so you see it in how parents relate with their children. Nigerian parents will be beaten not to correct, but out of frustration. You will see it when somebody skips to the front of the line in front of you, when you miss something, just a little thing, and we're all shaken. So we need to ensure that in major company policies there is room for mental health care.
When people hear anything about mental health, the first thing that comes to your mind is you're crazy, you're mad, psychiatrists.
Well, aren't we though in Nigeria? Aren't we already? Aren't we, right? Like, all you have to do is, Abuja is even better. Like, step out in Lagos if you want to see real madness. And it's like, we know, in terms of when you're talking like everybody they craze for Lagos. But yes, everybody they craze for Lagos. But in terms of when you're breaking it down to individuals, you think that there's some stigma to it. But you do realize in the broader term that everybody is crazy here. There is something wrong here. Our police officers, for somebody to just be so easily trigger happy, these people deal with so much trauma. Their pay is terrible. What they get to see on the road, knowing very well that if you die today, this is the end, So much of that. We're seeing our soldiers too. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Some of them will just open fire on their mates. They have been crying out. There's so much right now. And bringing it back to women, it's the same thing. After all of these things, you're expected to come back home and hold everything together.
And still take care of the family.
And still take care of the family and yourself and all of that. It's a bit too much. You can't have people hanging by a thread every day. You can't have people hanging by a thread every day. And instead of us to realize that, look, there's really an issue here, you would see that, no, you're telling us to take it to prayer. Keep quiet. As a woman, you're supposed to manage it like this and that. And which will point me back to these cases of brutality you're seeing women carry out. And again, not to give excuses for that. But in a system where you are the most oppressed and you have nowhere else to, once these women are able to get house help in the house, they can't carry it
Transfer
out
the
anywhere.
aggression,
They
yes.
can't carry it out anywhere. The children are not regarded as your own. Like it's your, if I do not touch, your husband is doing this. At work is this, different issues here and there. And so sometimes it's just that one place. Like everybody is the chain of oppression, and they take it down to that,
the lowest,
to
yes.
the lowest chain of that oppression. So we need to look at these issues, because some of the kind of brutality you even see, you know that the person is not all right.
You will ask yourself, is
Is
he a
this
human
person?
being
Yes. You know,
that did this
and most
to
of the time you
another
ask,
human being?
You hear, I don't know what came over me. Like, okay, this is
So it's really a case of mental health, and
yeah.
advice is that we should have psychologists or centers where people can walk
Where people, yes,
into.
it should be a very present part of
checked.
our existence
Yes.
as Nigerians. I think it should be
Especially this period of the
Yes,
pandemic, because
yes.
anything can trigger,
anything.
and people don't know that some of the things they exhibit is as a result of
Of that, yes.
instability
Yeah.
in their mental health. Oh, awesome! All right, I know that you're also very vocal. You know, maybe that's one part a lot of people know or don't know about you, and that is your political analyst.
Yes.
And you're very vocal about the marginalization of women when it comes to decision-making processes.
Yeah.
Would you say women are adequately represented in that sector?
Definitely not. Of course, if you look at the political landscape of Nigeria, I don't think we're up to 10% of women in the National Assembly, but the upper and the lower house. I come from Kaduna State. The Northwest just has one woman in the State House of Assembly. That's Kaduna. The entire Northwest. National, that is the Senate, the Northwest does not have any woman there. House of Reps, the Northwest does not have any woman there. And then House of Assembly, the entire Northwest has one woman, and she represents Sanga constituency in Kaduna State House of Assembly, and that is a huge problem. So look at the balance in terms of how decisions are being made there, or the passing down of leadership. Anything it is, women are just kind of like caught out in that area. And so look at the entire Nigeria. Southeast a bit, nowhere has it enough, but at least some of these places are better than others. But nowhere has enough. Women do not have up to 10% representation. We need 35% affirmative action for this. Women have been fighting for the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill. We're not having that. We're trying to also see that inside the Electoral Reform Bill, we put this affirmative action inside. And it's a bit of a lag. And I'm calling on all of us to actually put that.
Yes.
But, yes. Okay.
But people argue that women are not showing enough interest
No, that's not
in
true.
politics. I know you contested.
Yeah, I did.
So from your experience, is it
So-
that we don't show interest,
I
or
would-
what are the problems?
I would point out to you what my contesting was like. For example, the political party I contested on, the People's Democratic Party, I used to be one of the people representing PDP in the media on the national level here. And in the Middle Belt, that is the autochthonous tribes of northern Nigeria consider themselves Middle Belt. And I'm an elder there. I've been considered an elder since my 20s. So it will only be natural that when I go to run for office, something
You
as
should,
small as
yes.
a State House of Assembly, it will be a walk in the park. But I remember the first thing I got from people was that they told me that, oh, indeed, if you were a man, a young man would have celebrated that we have a new leader for our people. And they said, but you're a woman and a Yoruba man will come and marry you and you owe them allegiance. I was like, first of all, I thought that was
Like
pretty,
in
I
the
thought that was pretty
21st
specific.
century?
Yes. I thought that was pretty specific. I'm like, why would you say Yoruba? But I thought that was pretty specific. But that is what I meant. And keep in mind that this is a place also in Southern Kaduna where we're not raised with gender roles per se. Women from there are very manly, so to hear that when it's a key time for, this is the time you can do something to help me
Your people,
lead
yeah,
properly.
yeah.
Like every other time I've done things for you, but I've not needed your assistance to get it done. And so this is the one time I needed their assistance, and then this is what I heard, right? Another problem we have is that leadership in Nigeria is looked at in terms of a profit-making venture, not a service venture. So when something is, if it's a service venture, then I think more Nigerians will be thinking of who is the best person to do
To
here?
serve us,
Who is
yes.
what
To
qualities
uplift
do we
our
want
people,
to?
yes.
But because people think that once you enter, you don't hit. It's a profit-making venture. We need to change that. So once it is that kind of thing, selfishness enters enters the room, right? And once that kind of selfishness enters the room, you would want to keep as many people who are not like you out of it. And so that's what you're going to face. What is she doing here? Oh, don't think you can bring that power from the national and come and show us here. It was so much. You're not married. Why? If you're married, why does your husband not come from here? My cousin was married. Her husband came from the same local government. He did not come from the same tribe as our own. So our tribe people said, she married from a different, just so you know how specific it is for women. But I've seen my male friends who are in politics and nobody cares where their wives come from. Like, nobody really cares. You can even come with a white woman and they'll be enamored, like, you came with Oyibo. But for us, I just told you, the same Jamal local government, but Rabi's husband is from another side of the local government, and this is our own side. And our people were like, she married from another side, not our own, same local government. And so you would see that. And then in the course of, you would see young men like you, young men who have not even done as much as you've done, get so much support. And for every door political mentor you go to knock on, they're looking at you like, small girl, okay. They are the ones that will be asking you out, using that opportunity to solicit sex. They're the ones that will be looking like, okay, let's see where she's going with this. Like, it's so much, and it's so much frustration of your career not being taken seriously after you've put so much into it. I remember in terms of how difficult is it for a woman to be taken seriously. A couple of years ago, when the new publicity secretary of the PDP came in, and they were looking to like put young faces on TV so more people could relate. And so I was the only woman in the room, the only young woman in the room, and we were at David Mark's house. And just the day before, the Ghanaian president was here, and I was speaking at the same event, like we shared the stage, and I remember him being so, that's Nana Akufo-Addo. He was like, oh, you're so brilliant. Let my staff meet you, come over to Ghana. And I came from that, like I was so excited that day, like, oh, I now know another country's government, right? And the next day I'm at this PDP meeting and I'm there at that place. I'm talking about the economy, the future of Africa, young people, all of those things. I can talk about all of those things, of course. And so I'm here with Mr. Kola, God bless him, means very well. And he's telling all the other young men all the things they will be doing for PDP. And then he turns and goes, and so when it's time to talk about women, we'll call you. And my God.
Now I understand why women are only considered as woman leader,
yes,
treasurer,
like
but not
none of those.
Like she's not intelligent enough to talk about economy.
What was it?
She's not intelligent enough to talk about other issues.
And so I paused, and they were going to move on, but I'm a very troublesome woman, so I wouldn't let them move on. And I'm like, excuse me, sir. He was like, what? I was like, what did you just say? And I told him, I pointed out, I was like, all the young men in this room combined have not conquered the stages I have. Like, all of them, the places they have combined have not reached where I have. What makes you think that it's only women issues I can talk about? And then they move to apologize, and I know it's not like that, and yada, yada, yada.
I wonder where we will ever get to the 35% affirmative action.
It's quite difficult. That was what we were on before the COVID-19 issue happened. We're actually on course to hold a very big conference of politicians, African women politicians. And we brought like senators. COVID really upsets me because we're paid tickets for senators from other countries, countries who have achieved parity. Namibia has achieved 50% parity in their parliament. Rwanda has achieved that. Kenya has done 35% affirmative action. When they were moving for 50%, the men refused to show up to vote.
Wow.
Yes, but we've had countries like that who have been able to do that. We're also going to invite politicians, the vice president of Liberia, all of the countries that the women have been able to get to certain positions. We had gone there and then COVID happened. But it was that we needed to have this very concrete conversation on what is going to happen. This is supposed to be the giants of Africa. We're lagging. Where do we go from here? And I think that conversation needs to happen regardless.
And I think the conversation as pertains to women will be an ongoing thing until we achieve it. And that's what Total Woman is all about. Focused on women, how to enlighten women, how to uplift women, and also lend our voice to the conversation about women. Thank you so much, Idikatu, for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, that is the show for today. I hope you understand that if we keep quiet, the destiny of women will just slide down. But if we've achieved anything so far, is the fact that we should continue to speak. And until we attain the heights until we leave something, leave legacies for our children's children, we're not done yet. My name is Muti Olori. I'll be with you again next week. Bye-bye.
I am